It's about to start. We'll talk about code or whatever we'll talk about today. It's about to start, so please hang tight while I check that everything is okay. Sound check, camera check, lights check. How's my hair? Oh, wait, I don't have any hair. Maybe put some pants on and I am good to go. So get ready wherever you are, 'cause this stream is about to start. Get ready wherever you are, 'cause this stream is about to start.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Leonard Facchinetti, and let's talk about audio production with Arya. How are you doing, Arya?
Good. How are you?
I am good. So, change of plans. We were going to do this tomorrow, but we're going to do it now. And
Yes.
we were just having a conversation that I think it would be illuminating to have on the stream for everyone else to know the reality of what you do. So you are working on your own music, right?
Yeah. I finished like a mix. And since I've been in Montreal, it's been hard to mix because like my space is not treated. So I do like 95% of my mix with headphones, which is fine. Like I'm used to it. And like if you're using reference tracks, you know, you're like hearing things and you just try to match those. And then you kind of trust that those reference tracks are mixed well. So then if your sounds like that on headphones, it will sound to reason that it would sound okay on speakers as well. But yeah, anyway, I've been doing it and I finished a mix and I sent it to the Reaper users mix feedback group. And people were like, man, like I was enjoying this until the drums came in. The drums are just too quiet. I think overall, like what started to happen, overall, like mixing your own music is hard because you don't have objectivity. But I think my hearing in the high end region is going away. So my songs always just have way too much high end because like if I'm hearing it and if it's sounding good to me, it's already too much for people whose hearing isn't damaged.
I
kinda
always tell you that you
compensate for
monitor
that.
too loud.
No, I mean there's no doubt about that, but like I don't know. I guess once the damage is done, then it's hard for me to like, and it's too late to go quiet now. You know what
Yes.
I mean? But monitoring wise too, like they say mix at 85 SPL and it's hard to measure with headphones, but like I more or less do at that level. I think my headphones have too much bleed, you know, so it's like not as loud in here.
Okay. But I think you're using the same kind of headphones that I am using, right?
Yeah.
So I know how much it bleeds, and I know that you are definitely hearing louder than I do. You're monitoring louder than I do.
Yeah.
Especially because we know this because in previous streams we were able to, you were able to hear some things that I couldn't. And then when I increased the gain, I was able to hear those things. But yeah, I think that if you are doing it a lot like you do, you probably, you need to hear the things. So sometimes you need to crank up the volume, but I suppose that you could work at a lower level, not hearing everything as it maybe should be, but then you increase the gain, you hear it, okay, turn it back down, right?
Yeah.
Do you do this kind of thing?
Have you seen? Yeah, there's a video by Dan Worrell where he explains like in his monitoring chain he has this EQ, um, and he uses that to like when he wants to mix quietly. Yeah, I do that, especially when I edit and stuff. Like I edit quieter. When I mix, I just always try to be at the same level because everything like and when I listen to music, I listen at that level. And I don't listen to music often, so at least I got that going on for me. Like I'm not listening at these extreme loudness levels like all the time, but that kind of makes it like I try to make what I can be a constant so that I can hear the differences. So if I always mix at the same level, always hear reference tracks in the same level, like I have a good reference for like the balance of things at that level. That said, as it turns out, maybe not,
Yeah.
because like people are like, your drums are just way too quiet, dude. And then it's weird. Like as soon as people said that, I was listening to my mix. I'm like, obviously, like the drums are just way too quiet. Like how did I not, how did I not pick up on that? But like it takes somebody saying it for me to be like, ooh.
And I guess that's the objectivity thing that you mentioned. And Bo is here. Hello, Bo. Great to have you here. And Bo is asking if you
Hello.
had gotten an audiogram.
What's that?
I don't know, but I assume it's going to be some exam,
Is it
some
like a meter
examination
of
of
sorts?
your hearing. So probably you listen
Oh,
to a sine
yeah.
wave in different frequencies and you tell how loud you think the sine waves are. So you can sort of measure your frequency response of your ears.
Uh, yeah, I've done that. I've done that. Like when I was in university, we had a testing facility, so we did that a bunch. We did that like every year. You can kind of test yourself at home. It's okay. It's a little bit like the results aren't perfect because maybe your speakers or whatever you're listening with has like not a fully flat frequency reproduction capability. But you know, like you can at least like if you do it every year and you compare the results, you will see a trajectory. And yeah, when I did it last time, like 12K and up, I have like very reduced hearing, and then weirdly at 6K, I have like an extra notch down. So like 8K fine, 4K fine, 6K problem, and that is like that indicates a physical problem with the what's that thing called in your ears? There's a place in your ears with lots of hairs, and each one picks up a different. Forget the names of these things. That indicates a problem there. Basically, like I don't know, somehow, some way, maybe from live gigging and stuff. Just a little bit of my hearing in that region is crappy.
Yeah, so you said that the song that you're mixing now is particularly difficult to mix. And you mentioned how it's difficult to mix your own material and even the high-end thing that you mentioned. But what makes this song particularly difficult for you?
I think all my songs are difficult to mix, just cause, like, I don't know. I think, I mean, and maybe I have a problem with arranging. I have like too many elements, but I'm like, okay, like each element is doing something. And in this song, the problem is a little bit opposite because, like, a lot of people said at the beginning, there's like low end is lacking, but the beginning is just piano and vocals. There's nothing I can really give low end to. I mean, I can boost the hell out of like the piano low end, but it just starts sounding like really unnatural. And then once the low end comes in, I guess people were saying like there's not enough of it. So like if you don't have low end at the beginning of your mix, when it comes, it better comes like hard. And it just wasn't doing that. And then the end bit, I guess the biggest problem is I really like the vocals. So I constantly try to make sure the vocals are heard. And then that really hurts like the rest of the mix.
Yeah, but then again, there are some songs that have something particularly odd about them, and that's what makes the
Yeah.
song sparkle. And you can make the thing that is kind of off and accentuate that instead of trying to fix it, depending on the kind
Yeah.
of thing that is happening. I guess.
Yeah, like my favorite producer and also just probably my favorite band is well, my favorite producer is Omar Rodriguez Lopez, who's in Mars Volta. And yeah, their songs always have like some odd stuff about them. But if you listen to their mixes, I'm like, okay, the drums here are kind of low, or like he uses like pedals, like delay pedals on overheads and weird stuff like that, which I really like. But definitely, if you listen to like I don't know, like a regular kind of rock song or whatever, and then the next song is Mars Volta, there's a huge like difference, and like maybe not necessarily for the better. Like their stuff is not super like polished, or they're not like not everything is like up front. A lot of stuff are in the back. I was reading that like he recorded the drums for one of the tracks in an elevator, just to make it like just to like accentuate like resonant frequencies in all the drum bits. And like you listen to that song, then you listen to like a normal quote unquote song, like you'll hear a difference. And maybe to some people that sounds bad. To me it sounds awesome, but also it's not like I'm perfectly reproducing the stuff he's doing. I don't know.
Yeah, and one thing that comes to mind is that you mentioned how it's difficult to mix your own material. And now I have the question. Usually people say that you are not supposed to master your own material. But then again, having the budget to hire a mastering engineer, it's not always there. So how do you deal with that? Do you do the whole thing from composition to release, or do you hire people for certain parts of the process?
I've done both. The last song I did, Smudge from Mastering in the Box, great YouTube channel. He mastered it for free, and he did a great job. And I think I did a decent job with the mix. I think when I master my own music, like the issue becomes, and I try to mitigate this issue by just committing to stuff. The issue becomes like you get to the mastering stage and then you're like, ooh, like if this one thing was different in the mix, like the master would be better. So you tend to keep like going back. And mastering, like more than anything to me, it's like giving up control. Like I mixed it. You take it to the finish line. I mean, ideally, obviously, you would write it. One person would write a song, and maybe that person would record it or not. But then, like, somebody else would mix and somebody else would master. But yeah, you can't always do that. I think I just try to keep my objectivity by using reference tracks. And whenever I feel like, okay, like, this element needs to go, but I'm too attached to it, so I can't make it go. I just get rid of it and like reevaluate in a week. I'm like, if in a week or the next session, if in the next session I'm like that thing is missing, I'll bring it back. But if I don't even notice and the song like flows, then I'm like fine, like get rid of it. But yeah, it's hard. It's hard to, like, in this song, if this was somebody else's song, there were some elements that I would like get rid of, and somehow when it's yours, it's like, I don't know, it brings something.
Well, the flip side of that is that I think there is a lot of joy and satisfaction into saying, listen to this song. It's me. I composed, I recorded, I played on the thing. I was the engineer for the thing. I mixed, I mastered. Yeah. This is me. It's I did this. And yeah, I'm all in for collaboration and working in groups. But sometimes it's nice to have these projects where it's you.
Yeah. One thing with doing everything yourself is, like, yeah, like you said, like there's nobody to blame. Like it's all you. It's a true test of like what you can do. and it feels like really vulnerable in a way to like put it out there. But that's cool. Like I like that. And in a way, I'm like, like I'm sure every project I've done, when I come back to it after a year, I'm like, this sucks, which is bad. You should make some stuff that like stands the test of time. Um, but I guess it also shows that like there's an upward trajectory. Same thing with my like videos, like tutorials, like my old tutorials. Sometimes somebody asks a question and it's like exactly this tutorial I did, but I don't share it because I'm like, that stuff sucks. And probably the stuff I'm doing now, I'm like, in a year I'm gonna think they suck. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard for sometimes to even get out of this rush and actually do things. But let's talk about the more business side of things that we were talking about before we started the stream. So you decided to not go with a full-length album and instead do singles.
Yeah.
So why is that?
So at the beginning when I was making music, like as IDDQD, I was in a bunch of bands, and that was like my focus, the bands, and I was also working in a studio. So that stuff like had my focus, and my solo project was just like, it was stuff that like I couldn't bring any of those ideas to like one of the bands. It just didn't fit any of the bands. So every once in a while I would take one idea and I would just release it as a single. And that was working fine. Then like when COVID hit and I just didn't have bands, I was in Canada, nothing was going on. I was like, okay, let's do an album. So I did an album and it just didn't do so well. Like not a lot of people listened to it. Fewer people listened to the album than like any other of the singles that I released that I barely promoted.
But you promoted the album, right?
Yeah. I like, well, I paid Facebook to promote it, which is, I don't know. I feel like since I paid Facebook, when I don't pay them, nobody sees the stuff I do. Mm-hmm. And when I did pay them, I didn't feel like a huge like return from it at all. And I'm sure like I'm not great at that stuff. Like if you know how to use Facebook ads, it's obviously very powerful. I also think like, how many bands have you discovered through a Facebook ad? You know what I mean? Like that's just not how people like discover music these days.
Yeah.
And I like I had it sent to some blogs and stuff. There's a website called Submit Hub. Have you heard of it?
No.
It's a website where you basically pay people to listen to your song. So I think you pay $1 or $2 or $3 based on like who the person is, and they're usually like bloggers and playlist makers. And in 2020, like playlists were big. Now playlists are like, people are saying like they're nothing. But yeah, so you pay people, so they're basically obligated to listen to your song. They can't just have like a blanket no thing going on. Some of them do. So I paid like maybe I put like $20 and I had it sent to a few people. I got one person who like responded. Yeah, so basically I thought like with the album version, if you have a following, well, that's good. But I guess since I'm trying to still gain some following, especially like new people in the other part of the world, maybe it's good to like make it single by single, and then each single that comes out, I can do one round of promotion. And really like one part of promotion is like, you got to do it over and over again, and you got to not feel terrible about doing it. But I feel terrible about doing it. I feel like it's super annoying.
Yeah.
Like I have like classmates who like write a single and they literally for a month like not share the same thing every day, but like share versions of the same thing every day. And by the end of the month, like the song is in my head, even though I'm not like a fan of the genre. Like I know the song, I'll always recognize that song. And that's how you do it. Like I share like 2 or 3 times, and that's just not good enough. So at least doing the single, that means like I'm doing it more often. I don't know.
I see.
Probably won't work either.
You don't feel too confident, do you?
No, I think I've lost my like mojo, when it comes to this stuff. Just cause I don't know everything that I guess the more I learn, in a way, it like cripples me because I'm like, oh, there's so much I don't know. I should revisit everything. But also, I think like one thing, in school we did like a music business course, and they were saying like one of the things that is like the way to start is not through social media but with your friends and family. Like you get your friends and family to be your initial few like 100 followers, so that when you do promote, people don't think they're like walking in on an empty room. It's like a bar. If the bar is empty, less people come in. If the bar is full, more people want to come in and be like, what's going on? And I felt like I never cleared that stage. Like just friends and family didn't get interested, so I also never went all in with like the general public, I guess.
Yeah, well, it, I guess this advice kind of works if you are doing stuff that for which the target audience, if you think about it as a business, if your clients are people like your family and friends, but sometimes it's not like that. Sometimes you're producing for people who are not like your family and friends. And in that case, I don't think that advice applies very well, but what do I know? And I guess for me, this kind of mojo thing that you're talking about, I can totally relate. And for me, it comes in waves. I used to think that, oh, I'm never going to be able to write a program again or be in front of a computer again, or I'll never be able to write another song or that kind of thing. Comes at this point, I think I realized that it comes in waves. Sometimes I just don't feel like it. It's very hard to find a compelling reason to do the thing that I want to do or that I like doing. But it always comes around. So yeah, you just have to sometimes wait it and work on it, of course, because you do work on other things that are related to audio production. So you just keep doing that, and it's gonna come back.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, and like otherwise, I guess like I am in a situation where I'm not desperate for the music to work, but like and that's a good thing in terms of like mental health and stuff. Like my eggs are not all in the same basket, but maybe also being in that place where you're like either this works or I'm screwed, like is a better motivator than like if this works, okay, and if it doesn't, whatever. And I really don't want to have that like point of view, because I think if you want to be like a successful musician, the competition is super fierce. So if you're half dedicated, like forget it.
Yeah. And there is also a huge luck factor in. So, yeah. I guess another thing is that we sort of had to align the expectations. I mean, we shouldn't expect to be Billie Eilish and be super famous when we are 17, because that ship has sailed. But if you have the expectation that, like, for instance, my goal is for me to find cool people that share some interests and to expand the community. Yes, I do care about that. But like my goal is to have 1,000 subscribers on YouTube in 2 years or something like that. So
aren't you at like 900? You're gonna be there in like a month, no?
Yeah, but I have been doing YouTube for almost 1 year and a half at this point.
Oh, okay. At the beginning, you were like 1,000.
Yeah.
Okay, I see.
Yeah. So, and the other thing is that I don't do a lot of promotion, and I don't. I just keep doing the thing that I think needs to be done, which is to continue doing the thing, continue streaming, continue writing code, continue producing music, and just keep doing it. Because if you think about, yes, there are the overnight successes, but in most cases, I guess even the overnight successes are really a build-up of a lot of work, and then something chips the scale.
Yeah, like people mythologize like overnight success, and it does happen, or maybe it's like a relative thing, but yeah, like everybody like worked really hard to like people who we see as overnight successes is just like we see, oh, they released a single and now they have like fame, but really like their journey wasn't like that. Isn't It's not like they came online at the moment the single was released. Like there's a whole thing kind of behind it, or there's like a childhood aspect involved. So there's a lot of like, and this is again another thing with the music business. Like you have to kind of mythologize yourself. So one thing that like this teacher I had was telling me is like, you got like a crazy story and you should bank on it. And I was of the opinion of like, oh no, like my music should speak for itself. And she was like, no, you're dumb. Like don't think in those terms, because that's ridiculous. Like if you're a restaurant and your restaurant is in a building that used to be, I don't know, the last known location of Jack the Ripper, you can't be like, oh well, let my food speak for itself. It's like, no, attract people to your place however you can, and then actually let your music speak for itself from there. But to like kind of throw away like a bit of advantage that you have in that you have like an interesting story is just egotistical and stupid. So yeah, I'm learning like the business side of things, and the more I learn about it, the more I like hate it. And I'm like, this is not me. Like this is not me. But I don't know. And then there's like in the new age, I think another thing that's really coming that I feel like left behind and old is that like nowadays music as its own medium is hard to push forward. Like a lot of musicians have like an Instagram, and then every song has a video, or they make videos and they have all this visual content where the music is like in the back slowly pushing its way to your brain. I'm just not good at video.
Yeah, people say
So,
that since, I guess, MTV.
yeah, but now even like even at the MTV level, it's like, well, signed bands would get on MTV and then somebody would do their video. And now it feels like bands do their own video, like Wolfpack.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, like they make really good music, but geez, they make really good videos. Like their videos are great and fun to watch. And I'm sure there's like tons of like funk revival bands out there who, you know, like it's a style and they're within that style, but like probably because of their lack of video skills, they're not as big as Wolfpack. Yeah. I think, I don't know, I miss MySpace. I don't know if you ever had MySpace. MySpace was really for musicians. And like Instagram is just not designed for musicians. And musicians are trying to like, or some musicians are good at like using it. But I feel like even those people are like a lot of times using like images and videos rather than their own music. It's hard to tell people, hey, get off Instagram and go on Spotify and listen to my song. Like, who's doing that? Nobody's doing that.
Yeah. Well, I kind of feel, and I have felt this way since I was a teenager, because when I was a teenager, I was at this crossroads. I am interested in computer science. I'm interested in music. What do I pursue? And my impression back then is kind of still the same as the impression that I have these days, which is that the music business is kind of like the education business, the higher education business, at least. It's I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I think it's kind of a big scam. I don't think it's really worth paying the tuition that people ask for in the United States. When I say that higher education is kind of a scam, I mean that especially the US, where the tuition is so expensive. But even in other places, it's not the case that just having having a degree is going to get you very far. And over here in Europe, people are overqualified because they went to college and there's just not enough jobs for all these highly educated people. So it feels to me like the industry of making music is similar if you have a lucky break or someone is already famous or rich for other reasons, and then they can pour in the money to making their name into the music industry. But for most people, for like me when I was a teenager, I thought, well, this is not going to work out, I don't think, because there's a lot of money to be made in selling the dream that you can become a musician. But there is not a lot of money to be made in being a musician in and of itself. As an insider, do you think that this is too cynical, or do you agree?
No, like statistically speaking, you're not gonna succeed. Just going by pure statistics, like most teenagers who think of becoming a musician are gonna abandon that dream at one point. And it's just a very like heavily evolving thing, and the evolution is like speeding up. So it used to be that you would go, oh, it's the 80s, it's not like the 70s anymore, and now it's like it's 2022, it's not like 2021 anymore. And 2022 and 2021 and 2020 were like the slowest music years, and still it feels like the whole industry like shifted. And yeah, I think I see what you like. I see the parallel with the higher education. Like it's a huge investment, and it will probably not work. And if it does work, good. But like if like it's not, just speaking in terms of numbers. Like if you tell a financier, hey, give me $80,000, and there's a 0.1% chance that I'll do a chart-topping hit, and you'll collect royalties for the rest of your lives, they'll be like, fuck no. Like, why the hell would I do this? I can invest in literally like index funds and have a higher chance of like having an income, right? So if you think of it in those terms, like, yeah, like you're very likely not to succeed. And in a way, there's like, I don't know, as a lawyer, if you don't succeed, you can still work. Like not the best lawyer in the world is still working, but like as a musician, if you're not in that upper echelon, you're just not working.
Yeah, and do you think that also extends to other professions in the music business besides just being a musician, like being a mixing engineer and being a mastering engineer or recording engineer or anything in between, a podcast editor, that sort of thing? So do you think that those professions are also as risky and kind of a scam?
I think those are more secure than being like a performing/recording musician. But like, yeah, they're not fully secure. And especially nowadays, like so many people are doing it. It used to be you had to like actually have an engineer degree before somebody even lets you in the studio, right? Like people who worked on early Beatles records, they all had like engineering degrees, like electrical engineering, or they were like crazy good at maths, or they had like physics degrees, and they knew like the acoustics inside and out. And now you don't really need those things. So there's more people going into it. I think the most secure bits of the music business is the business side of it. Because if you do understand it and you just understand a little bit of music, you can get really far, and there's a high demand for you. Like if you're a person who is able to do like social media promotion for a band, and you're really good at that, security forever, because trends come and go, like platforms change, some artists like come and go, but that skill of being able to sell, like package and sell a musician, and there's very few people doing it. Like the competition is ridiculously low in those areas.
Let's see what people are saying. So Fotis is here. Hello. Great to have you here.
Hi.
And you can always buy bots to give you fake reviews and subscriptions. All cool kids are doing it. Yeah.
Even that doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, I was going to ask, does that work?
Not like, I think, no, like, first of all, like YouTube and all the social media platforms are getting really good at telling that you did that. So you do lose like lots of people that way as well. And that may be okay, like for people who like browse social media, like, for people who like are like, oh, this person has 11,000 followers, let me just follow them on that basis. Maybe it works, but nobody in the actual industry is going to fall for that. Like if you have 1,000 or 100,000 followers and there's not a single article about you, and you've not played festivals, you've not like been in like showcases, it's literally like with one Google you can see through that. That is really only for people who are not gonna bother even Googling your band. But if somebody is gonna give you a gig, or if somebody's gonna write something about you, they're gonna Google you. They're gonna find out that, hey, the band has 1,000 or 100,000 followers. They've never played a festival.
Yeah.
It's just not possible.
Arya, let's make a restaurant called Jack the Ripper.
I am a very good cook. I'm a better cook than a musician, I'll tell you that.
Okay. I don't want to know what kind of food Jack the Ripper, the restaurant, would serve. Maybe jackfruit. People prefer to watch music. Yeah, I agree. But then again, you talked about Wolfpack, and I didn't even know that they were good at videos. I just listened to them
cool.
On Apple Music. And that's the other thing. People these days, they just release singles because that's the way the industry is shaped. And I don't listen to singles, so I don't know what's up with newer songs anymore. I just listen to stuff from, I guess, up to 3 to 5 years ago.
Yeah, like you're in the minority, and I think
Absolutely.
there's something to be said about that as well. Like, what's that guy? Glenn Ficker made a video about like making albums and how it's like such a waste of time and money and you shouldn't do it. And of course, it has like a tone of comedy to it. So you can never really question that guy because he always has the like, oh, I was clearly being sarcastic response in the pocket. But there's something to be said about catering to a minority, right? Like if you make a vegan restaurant, you're already serving a minority of people. But
Yeah.
but there's still money there.
Yeah, I tend to prefer that style. I work on a small company, and I think that if you can think about it as a musician who is trying to live off your music, you can try to sell millions of albums, or you can try to sell maybe 1,000 records for people who are gonna pay $10 each, and that's not a bad. If you're doing the whole thing by yourself.
Have you seen the $1,000 theory thing?
$1,000 theory thing? No, I don't think I know of that.
Or it's 1,000 real fans theory. Or it's not a theory. It's like it's total maths, right?
Yeah. So I guess that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah. Like if you get 1,000 dedicated people who will spend $50 a year on you, you gotta go on Bossa Nova. And I think in that regard, maybe in the past 10 years, I have maybe 100 of those people. So some like lots of people did buy my album, and lots of people like paid a bunch of money for it. And lots of people do like donate to the channel. And if that number gets to 1,000, I can make a living. But it is hard to do. With with YouTube, it's been easier, and I think that's because what I'm doing is like not self-serving. It's like tutorials for a DAW. Versus with music is really like, hey, come listen to me and what I have to say and feel and learn, like take away possibly nothing from this.
But again, it is sort of this dog chasing its own tail, because you're doing tutorials for people who want to learn this so that maybe they can do tutorials, and then it's like the pyramid scheme of teaching, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Fotis mentioned like OK Go, right? Like OK Go's music is like, to me, like, even though I like that genre, to me it's like 5 out of 10. It's just very regular music. And then you watch your videos, you're like, holy crap. And Wolfpack, like, I love their music. Their music on its own is fantastic. but they are really good live performers, and that's huge. But like how they kind of got into the mainstream was through a few videos of theirs that went viral. And they were really simple videos. They were like a camera at home, but it was just like their set design is nice. Like they coordinate their outfits. Like these things are important. A lot of people do like respond to that.
Yeah, and the time was different. I think that these days, the kind of production value that you would need to pull this off is much higher, and you would need either a bigger budget or a bigger team or something like that. MySpace actually spawned music genres. Instagram and TikTok only rehashed existing ones. Both music education and music industry are rife with scam artists. True.
Yeah.
Rick Beato has a recent vlog on how people are not listening to new music anymore. No idea how solid the evidence is, but he says the majority of listeners are tuning into old music. I don't know. I think it has more to do with like relatively old people like ourselves and Ricky Beato. We are listening to old music.
Yeah, like one thing also is like, and no disrespect to Rick Beato, but a lot of people like look at the wrong place for things and they're like, what's wrong with the industry because I went on MTV and I didn't see like a paradigm shifting music. It's like MTV isn't where you should be looking, right? Like in a way, actually, like you can now go and find like easily like a Venezuelan band who's like fusing jazz and like Venezuelan music, and their singer sings in French and they all live in Austria. And it's never been easier to find that type of stuff. So I've honestly, like since 2011, I think last year was my biggest like discovery of crazy cool bands year of my life. So you can still like discover new music, and the people who are doing that are still there. It's just that if you look at like 15-year-olds have always been consuming music wrong. When I was 15, I would go on like Viva Polska, and I was like, okay, System of a Down, Linkin Park, Limp Bizkit, Slipknot, and everybody who was 15 in America was doing the same thing, and everybody who was 15 in Argentina was doing the same thing. And then you grow up and you're like, okay, let me look over there, and like, oh, Primus, King Crimson, right? Like 15-year-olds or 7-year-olds or 9-year-olds always turn on the TV. The first thing they see leaves an impression on them. That's what they do. But like if you look at adults, I think adults like, we're at the best time for music, because, and also just in terms of how much the scope of the listeners has, like, their minds are more open than ever, right? Like in the 90s, you couldn't have a hit song if it was like anything but power chords. Now you can write a song with all ninth chords with 10 modulations. You can make like chromatic music, like stuff that like Bill Wirtz does, just wouldn't be popular in the 90s because it would sound dissonant to people. Nowadays, people's minds are so expanded. Like, oh, you want to throw in effects? Sure. Grain delays? Fine. Crazy, like, progressions and harmonies. All of that is totally fine and totally normal to people.
And that's why I love the internet.
Yeah, exactly. The internet, like, has in a way just made everything so much better that it's hard to say, oh, like, back in a day where you would go to a record store and whatever was there was what you had was in any way better. Like, no. Like, so many people got screwed over in those times, bands we never heard of, and we just don't know about them because we never heard of them.
Yeah. And I guess the biggest tragedy is when they become famous after they are no longer a band, or even after they passed away. That's really...
Yeah.
It must be so frustrating to think that you are a failure and then you die and you're like the biggest ever. Which I guess doesn't happen in music all that often. Happens more like if you're a 19th century painter or something. But it still happens, like Nick Drake, right? happened to him.
Yeah. Yeah, like even like Jeff Buckley was semi big, but really like his death made him much bigger. Like yeah, like it does happen to a lot of people, or people who just quit early on, and then there's a band called Sixth, Sikth, and their music really kind of kick-started a whole subgenre of metal that got really big in 2009, and they quit in 2008. And then like the effect that they had on that genre was so big that they came back in 2018, but they weren't as good. But yeah, they like struggled for 8 years. They put out 2 albums that I think are like incredibly good, but it was the time, just like the time wasn't right for them. And then like 15 years later, people were like, oh, that stuff was the stuff, you know?
Such is life. Regarding education, a lot of careers are going to be automated. The big research money is going into healthcare and law. Those are the jobs that are probably going to go first. That would be interesting because they are amongst the highest paying jobs these days. Even music production is being automated these days with AI, machine learning, blah, blah, blah. And that's why I'm riding the wave, baby. That's why I am the guy behind AI and machine learning. See?
Yeah. I think, and like, it's sad because we live in the type of society where people can't enjoy that fact, right? Like it's incredibly cool that things are gonna be automated, that like maybe in a few years nobody has to like break their back in a mine to mine resources, or maybe nobody has to like lift heavy equipment because there'll be machines that do it, or even like assembly and all that stuff. But like because of capitalism, it's making people like fear it. And that's really sad, because we should really be excited. Like, we're at a stage where we no longer need to do these things that nobody wanted to do. Like, wouldn't it be great if nobody had to be a cleaner anymore and cleaning would just be automated? But we can't be excited about that. When it comes to like machine learning, I think music production is still far from that happening to it. But yeah, like mastering in a few years, it's going to be pretty easily automated. Yeah, I think like with creative stuff, machines, it's going to be a while before they understand context. Like, oh, this song is not supposed to sound as loud as this other song.
Even if that is a possibility, I always think back of a quote that may not even be true, but I think it was like some general in some war, I think World War II, and they had to allocate resources, right, for the war. And then there was some budget that was allocated for something artistic that had nothing to do with the war. And they were like, why are you allocating money for this? And the answer was, otherwise, what are we fighting for, right? And I always get back to this, right? Because I don't think that necessarily making music or arts is profitable, but it is what gives, at least to me, any meaning to living, to being here. So
right.
Even if you can automate some aspects of things, I think that making art is the reason why we are here. So we are still want to do it by hand.
Yeah, like you automate things that you don't want to do, not the things that you live for doing. We're never going to automate eating because we enjoy eating. Why would we? You know, people are always like, in the future, there will be a pill and you take that pill and that's your nutrients for the day. I'm like, even if that pill was available, I still want to enjoy like a nice scrambled egg. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not gonna, because that's part of joy. Or like, yeah, like with music production, people actually enjoy doing that. Why are we even trying to automate it? And even if we do automate it, there's still going to be people who are like, no, I like a good guitar with the strings and I want to put my fingers there, you know? Like, it's just great to do.
Yeah, I guess this kind of explains the comeback of LPs, which makes absolutely no sense. Why would you want vinyl? It's just literally worse in every sense. But then again, it is a thing.
Oh, I'm glad Fotis knows sick. Cool.
Bo is actually looking forward to the days of AI and machine learning, especially on mixing.
Yeah, I guess that's because maybe he enjoys writing more than mixing.
Yeah, and
But to me, it's like even if they come up with a plugin that's like, hey, you know this song you've been mixing for 3 months and it still sounds crap, like throw it in there, I still be like, nah, I'm good.
yeah, Fatih says that has always been my goal. My project after the Pulse was not aiming to have a million fans, just aiming to have some kind of popularity to the ambient music scene, niche music. Exactly. MTV doesn't stand for music television anymore, really? What does it stand for?
Oh, I didn't know that.
Or is it a joke that I'm not getting?
I guess the thing Fatis was saying, that's another thing I struggle with, because I always knew my music is like niche, but I don't even know which niche it is. My last album I called like psychedelic rock, and somebody actually sent me a really nice email. They had also bought the album and they're like, dude, like I love the album, but when I saw psychedelic rock, I wasn't expecting to hear this. And it was like, this is probably hurting you because they have something in mind when they hear psychedelic rock and then they listen to music, it's not that. And I was like, so what do you think it would be? And then he wrote me and he was like, well, I would say alternative, but alternative is a lot more poppy. And I would say progressive, but progressive is not like your music is not progressive enough. So it's really hard to find that niche. But if I do, I think one day I'll do well. Like if one day I can describe my music in a sentence, that would be a big step forward for me. Because right now I'm like, yeah, it's a kind of, I don't know, film. I don't know. I genuinely don't know how to describe my music.
How do you think that people feel when they are listening to your music?
I don't know.
Because that could be part of it, right?
That part. Yeah, exactly.
And
I also just think like it changes from song to song. So that part is hard too. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess the only running theme on the kind of artist that you are and that I try to be is that it's us doing it. But
yeah,
other than that, it is going to be different. Oh, so MTV is no longer music television. It's just
interesting.
3 letters, MTV.
That's crazy.
You know something silly that I am relatively proud of? MTV was started airing in Brazil in 1990, October 20th, at about 12:29. That's when they started airing in Brazil. And I know that because that's the exact minute in which I was born. So I am exactly the MTV generation. I was born in the exact same minute they started airing. So I definitely watched a lot of MTV.
Yeah, same.
Right. So that was a lovely conversation. Can I show you a composition?
That was an hour-long tangent. Sure, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, so before we were doing singer-songwriter, now we are doing orchestral, and next I have an idea of what we are going to do next. So here's what I want to do next.
You said synth stuff, right?
Yeah. But here's the twist. You said that it would be nice to do a string quartet or maybe work on some more counterpoint and learn more about the theory behind all that. So how about we do synth patches that could pass for strings, and then we do sort of a synth quartet.
Oh, interesting. Cool. Sounds like a fun idea.
Yeah, so that could be a goal. We would try to look at synthesizers as a way to not necessarily try to mimic the sounds of strings, because I think that would sound like MIDI from the 90s. No, we would just come up with a sound that is in the same range as a violin, and come up with another sound that is in the same range as a viola, cello, and double bass. And then we would write in the style of, but using synthesizers. So it would be, the inspiration for this is the soundtrack composed by Trent Reznor for The Social Network. Amazing movie. Love that movie. The screenwriting is just amazing. Amazing dialogue. And the only role in which I can stand that guy, every other movie I watched by that guy, the Mark Zuckerberg in that movie, I couldn't enjoy. But that one is amazing. And there is this, it's just used for like 30 seconds in a scene, but it is something Mountain King. I forget the name of the composition, but it's a classical composition.
Okay,
And,
I don't know by name.
Yeah, and he redid that in the style with synthesizers and that sort of thing. Has been a while since I listened to that, so maybe I'm just misremembering it, and that was the inspiration. Misremembering the thing was the inspiration. In any case, classical stuff.
Have you seen a very, very unrelated question? Have you seen Zombieland?
My wife tried to make me watch it because she's into that, and I love Emma Stone, and I would have watched it, but it's so gore. Like in the first 5 seconds, heads are exploding, and I don't have the stomach. So yeah,
Okay.
she says it's an amazing movie, but I'm not convinced.
Yeah, it's good. I like it.
All right, so we are going to try to do synthesizers in the style of maybe counterpoint or a string quartet or something like that. But
Cool.
before that, let's finish this. And by finishing it, I mean, I wrote everything. You can see there's data everywhere. And I do want to talk about some things that I did. And then you can tell me some things that, Fauci said, in the Hall of the Mountain King, which is the correct composition. It's like dun, 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 dun. You know that one, right?
Not from memory, but
Okay.
like I've seen the movie, so I probably heard.
Dun,
It.
dun, 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 dun. So,
Oh, that one. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
yep,
And they did that with synths.
Yep.
In the movie.
Yep.
Oh, zero recollection of that.
yeah, it's used. It's a throwaway song in like one scene, and the brothers that sued Mark Zuckerberg are rowing a boat, and they play that because I think that they actually lose the race. I forget. Great movie, right? So, let me show the first thing that I did. I started using the media editor instead of the inline media editor. I redrew all the expression and mod wheel using points and also using like curves. But I wrote everything by hand here instead of trying to sort of draw the thing or even perform. I couldn't get around to doing that. So, and then I sort of did what I said I would, which was like copy and paste the busiest parts from here and from here, copy and paste there, and that's your second section of the song, because it has to repeat, right? Something has to be the theme of the thing. I'm not in love with the way it sounds, but it's done. I mean, at least the composition. So we can talk about some things that the low-hanging fruits that I could do to make this better. So yeah, let's give this a listen. Let's just make sure that the output is right so you all will be able to hear it. Yeah. Yeah, I know it's kind of basic, and Fadis is being nice and saying that it's very sweet. Thanks for saying that. But I admit, this is not like the greatest. And to be honest, I didn't really enjoy the process. I was maybe too much in my mind thinking, oh, I need to make room for the person to breathe. I need to make sure that I'm not changing articulation too fast, all that sort of stuff. It wasn't too enjoyable for me. So maybe the synth thing that we are going to do later is going to be more interesting because I don't need to think about realism. We are just throwing out that window from the get-go. But yeah, so Arya, let's do a critique of what I have here. How can I make it better in terms of composition and even in terms of like making it sound more realistic?
I think one thing that I noticed, well, two things I noticed right away was the cello that starts at measure 19. Probably you're not using the same velocity, but make that difference bigger between those notes when they're playing like doop, 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 doop. So it doesn't sound too like machine gun-y. Overall, it's like a very unusual thing to write for the cello. You just had two options, right? So that would be this line would be really good if you give it to like horns or woodwinds, like low woodwinds, and then the cellos are just playing straight notes. String players are really bad at playing rhythmically, like precise stuff like that, like bop bop ba da bop. It's hard for a cello section to play, unless it's like pizzicato. Then it's a little bit easier. But they gotta like in unison kind of get you that upfront attack. So it's a little bit tricky. One thing that I thought you could work more on is at the very end when we're landing the composition. Your dynamics should really reflect that, so they can go like really piano, just get like super soft. And like more airy, which I guess also with the BBCSO you don't have like a whole world of sounds, but there's like a breathy way that flutists can play a line that sounds really kind of like soft and upfront. Same thing with like like just kind of land the thing. Everything kind of getting more piano.
Okay, so first of all, hello, I'm going to say Secret Squirrel because that's how you taught me to say your name. So hello, great to have you here. And so let's address this. Let's try to make something out of this. I think it should be relatively fast for me to... Oh, and by the way, I did the thing that you talked about where I have keyboard shortcuts to show and hide stuff. But so you're saying that in this section here, starting here, it is too mechanic, not the flute, but the cello.
The cello.
So I should make these differences in velocity more prominent, right?
Yeah, and like again, and maybe you won't enjoy this, but like think of how this would be bowed. If I was bowing this, I'd be like bub bub ba bub. So the ba bub, that would be softer because you need to kind of retreat. And then the first two bobs, so big at the beginning, and then like a lot more piano, kind of thing. But yeah, you have some difference between the velocities, but it's not enough to like trigger another sample. So it still sounded to me a little bit like it's the same sample playing over and over again. A little bit.
So instead of that, it would be let's make it aggressive first, and then we can
let's
pull
give
back.
that a try. That may be a little too much, but let's see.
Yeah, that's too much.
Yeah, got a little too soft, yeah.
Yeah, no, I need a little bit more of that, otherwise you won't hear it.
More, yeah.
I guess probably this being a bit quieter is going to make a bigger difference than trying to change this, because if I made this any quieter, we wouldn't hear it all that well.
And then you can also play with their duration. So maybe it's like wham bum ba-dum bum. Wham, bum, like tons of things like that, and like kind of changing that would help things be realistic.
Let's try that. So a long note, and then we go to staccato. Let's hear this in context. Yeah, I get what you mean, but I don't really feel
it
it.
wasn't like incredible.
Yeah. I think that actually, given the limitations, as you mentioned, there are limitations of not having necessarily the breathy sound of the flute, and Fotis is mentioning how this version of the orchestra that I have doesn't have round robins, so sort of sounds the same because it is the same. So given the limitations that we are working with, I think that this is probably the best we can do. And I guess this would fool no one. No one would think that this is a real orchestra. For one thing, we should have a solo cello and we have a section. So,
yeah, but I mean, yeah. Apart from like those nitpicks, like the composition is really good, and to me, like like there's gaps you can fill. But it's good duet writing because this is a good duet to like develop into a full orchestral thing. If you write a duet in a way that it's completely complete, then you can't add anything to it. And I feel like this has room for stuff to be added to it, maybe some percussion, extra instruments to give like new text, because you're definitely like pushing. You're getting all the sounds that you can get out of these two instruments. So then if you had some like contrabassoons or trombones to give that to some things to like accompany the flute in some places, that could be cool. There's still like lots of room for extra kind of harmonies to be stacked, so it's good duet writing. Like what I had in mind was to like develop this into a full orchestra, so this is perfect for that because there's tons of space in it for other things to come in.
And I guess that's another part of the composition that maybe I did not enjoy, just because I have been playing the guitar for so long now. I am so used to making more sounds at once, so used to think about chords and just that's the way that I reason. And then when I was writing this, I had to think about a single note for each instrument. And I don't know, I guess that shouldn't throw me off that much, but it sort of did. And yeah, so you said that here at the end we should get softer, but I was thinking that this was like the big
Okay.
So maybe it should be the other way around. I should be exploring more the dynamics by making everything quieter so this could stand out.
And then I guess your final cadence, there's a few things you can do. Your final cadence to me sounds very to be expected. So how can we make it not to be expected? One kind of tropey trick is the Picardy third. Finishing on the major one. Also, I guess another thing that happens in orchestra is like the tempo is not straight through. So if you create some tempo fluctuations, that really makes things sound natural. And then like with that last cadence, people will hold it a little bit and then release it.
Yeah, so that's a good point. Another thing that I did and I forgot to mention is that at the end, had the whole thing, I hit H and I humanized all the notes. So now I drew everything. I didn't play anything by hand. But if you zoom in, you're going to see that the notes are not exactly on the grid because I humanized. So do you use that at all?
Yeah, I do humanize, but I also change the tempo because like it's not like people follow the grid perfectly and they just miss it sometimes is that the grid itself is also fluid.
So I guess you would go over the song and you would say like, oh, things are going to get more interesting or more exciting over here.
Yeah.
So you would put maybe, I have a keyboard shortcut for this, but I forget what it is. So let me go real quick here, and it's Command Option Shift and G. Oh my god. So you would put a tempo marker here and you would put another one there, and then you would do something like this.
Yeah.
Gets exciting, so it gets a little bit faster than the rest.
Then maybe hold that measure 44 a little longer. Maybe even like instead of the last two notes hitting on the 1 of 45, they hit on like 2 of 45, something to kind of like a little bit break that expectations. And of course, it's not mandatory. You can always not break expectations.
Yeah, by the way,
yeah,
speaking of breaking
overall
expectations,
tempo
there is one part that I tried to be cute. I'm not sure it works, so I want to bring this to your attention.
Okay,
and then we are
let's
going to
see.
try to change the grid right here just so we can get a sense of what that sounds like. But so in this part here, I was like, this is sort of the end. Oh, no, it's not. And of course, because you are seeing the DAW, you will not be surprised, but you see more to come. But when you just hear that, I thought it would be kind of a cute thing. So let's hear this again, and then you can tell me if it works or how we can make it better.
Oh, okay. You can even break it more, like you know, like you can insert a 2/4 bar so that the measure 35 plays out completely. Then there's a 2/4 bar where that comes in. So it's really like, okay, it's over, and then it's like, psych, it's not over, right?
Right.
So you can kind of push it.
How does one do that? I need to insert a tempo signature marker here. And then
it's in one of the top menus.
So I'm going to have to insert some time here because you're proposing that I keep these two notes, right? Even extend this one. So I need to insert some time at this point. So I guess I need to select, I'm going to select like a whole measure. And then I know there is an action here to insert. Is it in insert?
Yeah, it is an insert. A measure from a time selection. New time signature is one way to do it.
Oh, I guess I need to split the item. Otherwise, it won't move. Right?
If I remember right, you don't need to. If I remember right.
Well, but I clicked on the thing, it didn't work. So.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
And don't detect tempo, because the tempo is gonna be one measure of the thing. You gotta use the other one. New time signature.
And the time signature is gonna be 2/4.
And actually, your time selection has one measure selected, so just select half a measure.
Okay.
So that way, the tempo will be detected correctly.
I've never done this kind of surgery on the timeline before. So you're saying that it should be 2/4. And yeah, it seems like...
it didn't move the stuff. Yeah, it didn't. It inserted the thing, but it didn't move. So you can now split it and just move them to measure 37. And then sustain that cello note and just bring that half measure to forward. Or is it just 1.5 beats? Okay, it's not a full 2/4. I guess it's just 1.5. But even cooler to me. Or you can insert a 3/8.
I guess it makes more sense if I split it here, right? Because I want to bring these notes over.
Yeah.
So split it there and split it like that. And it seems like I lost some CC over here, or maybe it's just the rendering.
There's a preference for that. Allow something.
Yeah, but I can correct that. It's no big deal. So then I move this stuff there. And I do have repo editing on because the markers moved. Yeah, repo editing was on. Go figure. Oh, no. I moved
not
too
there,
much.
but yeah.
Like this.
Even now, 1 beat forward. Because I guess you still want that part where the flute and the cello are playing the same thing to start on measure 37, right?
Yes, like this.
Yeah, something like that.
And then we glue all these items. What is the keyboard shortcut for gluing? It's Command-Shift-G.
Command-Shift-G's.
Then dive into the MIDI and
Then
fix
just kinda
things up,
clean up,
because
yeah.
now it will be messed up. So this is the flute. And what you're saying is that I forgot where we are. I think we are in the right location, aren't we?
I think so. Oh wait, no. Is it? I think we may be in the wrong location. Was it not 37 something?
Yeah, the timeline jump around. Okay.
Yeah.
So over there, I extend this note. I guess I delete this one and I extend it forward like this.
Yeah, you cool.
And then because this is a long note. I, by the way, checked the assumption that I had from having watched Chris Hansen's videos, and I was right. Or he was right. I remembered right. Short notes or these kinds of notes, it doesn't matter the expression and the mod wheel. It's just the velocity that is going to affect the sound. And for long notes, it does not matter. The velocity doesn't matter. You can do it like this. It doesn't matter.
It's just the expression.
It's just the expression and the mod wheel for this library anyway. So I'm going to do the velocity the way that I have been doing, which is manually. So now you get to see what this looks like and see if you like it, if you think there is a better way of doing this. Usually when I put a new point, I guess it's because of the splitting. It's not using my default curve type. It's doing a step. Wasn't supposed to, so need to
weird.
change this to slow start and end. And then when I add something, it becomes slow start and end as it should. This one is still wrong.
Is it because your note doesn't go all the way, so the last CC event is still tied to that?
I don't know. This is the first time I'm doing this, but I changed the curve. I nudged the curve and that fixed it. So I'll take it. So I want the note to kind of fade over here, and then I will do something similar over there and just tweak the curve like this a little bit. Oh, come on, deselect. Deselect. Ah, see the stuff that I have to go through? I don't really like it. Let's hear that. I guess I need a bit more variation in the middle.
And again, if you had access to more articulations, like it would sound better. But I think, yeah, you've done all you could with the library that you got.
And I guess that's another thing that I may not particularly like about this kind of work with orchestration and everything. You need all these big hard drives, big libraries, and it's a lot. So
yeah.
Some people say that you need actually two computers. One is just a server for samples and all of that. And I was like, and I also heard that if I had I was writing this as if it was a single flute playing, but if I had like a section of woodwinds, I could do dovetailing to have continuous playing without having to think about breathing and whatnot. And I even heard that or not most, but some composers don't necessarily think about that. They leave that for the orchestrator.
Yeah, totally. In like most orchestras have like maximum 2 flute players. So flute is a little bit different in that regard, but yeah, you can totally like not think about that stuff for sure. And yeah, like also, like there are flute players who don't have a problem. They can play 12 measures without breathing. But some don't.
Yeah, so maybe that's it. I was just so much in my head trying to make the thing look playable and realistic that I was doing the work of the orchestrator and getting out of the flow of composition. So maybe that's part of why I didn't enjoy this so much. But let's hear the flute now and see if it's a little bit better. Yeah, it's not great, but it is what it is. So let's go to the cello and fix that one. And before I go into the cello and fix it, yeah, I do want to see what you all are talking about. So yeah, I can check this library. It is in my radar. I will get to that at some point because I do like the idea of writing singer-songwriter, guitar kind of stuff, but then layering some elements of orchestra just to spice it up. I think that could be more fun even. And in that case, I would not be pretending that I would hand this to a real player. So I could just pretend that the flute is a synth and go crazy with it. Yeah, put it through a guitar amp. Yeah, so I would really appreciate if you could take a moment next day or to see my tweet of yesterday's cast and DM through it. Oh, okay, so you're just asking me to log into Twitter. I'll do that. I have an idea to boost ESP Juice Dev community. Great. I'll get to that. Yeah, you can use the extension. You can use grooves to humanize MIDI. What is the advantage or disadvantage of doing that versus the just humanize feature in the MIDI editor? Do you know, Arya?
Well, humanize just kind of randomly moves it off the grid, but like the groove has like a groove, right? So it could be like the old drum machines had these grooves where it was like one of them that I really like is it's like 51% and 48% kind of on and off grid, and it gives it a little bit of like, you know, like wobble and warble. That said, the groove tool, I find it good for some things. I feel like it would be really hard to use for like a flute.
Yeah, I tried to use something that is not grooves, but there is this notion here of swing that does not work well. I tried. Or I couldn't make it work in any case. It just sounds like weird. It sounds so weird. But I guess grooves is even more sophisticated than this because the swing is just moving some of the grid lines forward, right?
Right.
And grooves is a bit more sophisticated than that.
Yeah.
Arya.
Grooves is like a pattern of humanize that you can always like keep applying to other things.
Right. Okay, I haven't played with that, so maybe that would give good results. And Arya, do you have a Twitter account?
Yeah, I put the wrong thing in, but then I put the correct thing in just now.
Unfortunately, Twitter shared that the account...
Oh, wait, that didn't show up. The comment had a link in it, so it wasn't... but I am writing the right one now.
Oh, and then we have PCSRGH, which I think you pronounce as... Who...
They don't even try anymore, these bots.
What are they doing here? Are they trying to scam people? Because this is not a URL that you can go to. So what is up with this?
I have no idea, man.
I mean, couldn't you just give us a good old link for enlarge your audience? See what I did there? The future is physically modeled synths, less hard drive space needed, but more flexibility and realism. Oh, okay. So there are people modeling violins. I know that there is Piano Tech that does physical modeling of pianos, but I didn't know that there were other things like that.
Piano is easier to do, like with string instruments. I don't know. That's one of those things where, like people who do use sample libraries are gonna fight until the moment where the fight is over. It's kind of like with digital plugins. Like people who bought hardware are gonna fight till the last breath. Like, no, it's not the same until it's like really undeniable. Yeah, like physical modeling has been around for a while, and like with piano it works well. With what else does it work well with? Like with percussion stuff, it works really well. But like the intricacies of the violin, man, and even like, because if you have a single physical model, that still doesn't take into account like, and I'm not talking about like, oh, like no two violins sound the same, but like not even the two strings on the same violin sound the same. So really, you need four models, one for each string, and all of those things. Like it's still a bit in the future, I think, for all instruments in the orchestra. But yeah, like the piano ones sound amazing.
Do you think that we are in the uncanny valley for that kind of thing? Because we are in the uncanny valley for modeling speech. You can sort of tell that it is a machine,
Right.
but then again, depending on the context, you may not know. So deep fakes are a thing.
You may miss it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, yeah, I think it's very close.
And is it worth it in
to
terms of
getting
like
there.
CPU use and everything? Because loading samples is kind of hard on your machine, but definitely modeling all the intricacies of an instrument is going to be hard on your machine too. So
Is also going to be hard. So I guess it's also a trade-off in a way. But it's also something where like I guess like computers are going to get better. So since everything's getting better by the time that thing is there, it's going to be like easy for your CPU to handle it, I think. Yeah, like we're close to those things sounding really realistic. The thing is, like when I hear physical modeling, I'm like, well, there's also people who are saying we don't exactly understand all the intricacies of the violin physically speaking. Like, why does it sound the way it sounds? So until the time where we can actually exactly explain why a violin sounds like a violin, then we can't model it. But once we understand it, we can model it, right?
yeah. And well, I am all in for the evolution. I think the modeling is a lot of fun, especially when you take the model and you say, okay, but what if it's not really a violin? Or what if it's a violin of the size of a stadium? Or what does that sound like? So
Yeah,
that sounds like a
exactly.
lot of fun. I'm exploring physically modeled now. My first instruments are physically modeled due to being sterile and low storage footprint, learning as much as I can right now as a beginner. Aren't we all?
Yeah, I think physical modeling is gonna be the rage. And yeah, already with pianos and drums is really cool. So I think you're in the right place, like, because I mean, sampling. How far can we take sampling? It's just like more samples. Now the new version has like 35 articulations instead of 30, and then the next model has 45. So we're already like kind of at a cap with that stuff. So the next logical step may be physical modeling.
Yeah. Let's get rid of all these humans. Right, but we still have to do the human thing, which is to fix the cello, which is now just absurdly wrong. But it's not too hard to fix because all it has to do is sustain
Yeah.
up to here. And then naturally we need to change this curve. And this one is a bit nicer for by coincidence, sort of. But it is. I'll put something here and something there and bring it down. All of that is looking good. Let's make this a little bit better here. And what does that sound like? Yeah, this is much better. I like it.
Yeah.
Good trick.
Little
So
breathing space.
we are trying to break expectations, so we introduce a measure of something wacky in the middle. Like it. And yeah, another thing you mentioned was this ending here. So let's get back to that. And here it is just trying to accentuate the big ending that I'm going for, right? I tried.
So I guess the reason I got the vibe that this is a soft landing is again to do with the library. Like, cause in reality, like if you were getting like to a peak, then the cello would like bring the attack in more up front, you know. But you can still possibly maybe change the rhythm. So instead of do, it could be like do, like a little bit like faster rhythms or something. But yeah, like again, it's the limitation of the library. It feels like the cellos are softly bringing in the attacks, whereas in like your intention is for it to be like boom, boom.
Well, I
The
also
cellos can sound
programmed.
like that.
I also programmed it like this. So you're
Oh, it's like soft. Okay.
so you're saying that I shouldn't be so soft in the beginning of the notes. So, for instance, bring this here and this there. Whoops. And select.
Yeah, maybe.
Oh, come on. I find it so hard to
Even the
grab the right
highest
notes on this.
expression is at the attack.
I find it so hard to unselect notes. What is the way that you can unselect notes? Unselect all of them and just unselect.
I just use marquee select.
Okay.
I never really unselect. I just select something else.
Okay. Yeah, if I marquee select, I cannot click. I need to drag a little bit and then it unselects. Okay, that makes more sense. Okay, let's hear this. Okay, I guess if I do it for all of them, you can select notes across lanes. That's super cool.
Yeah. Yeah, like razor edit style even, you know?
You cannot do razor edits here, right?
No, but like the razor edit feature in CCs just always kind of existed. I've not been keeping up with razor edit. Maybe you could do it. I don't know.
No, I can sort of hear the samples going out and then back in again. No? Da, da. Yeah, no. Undo.
Yeah, like you could just have it more like you know, like what does a straight line sound like, you know what I mean?
Oh,
Because if like a cello was playing it, they would just go like, you know, they would just scrape the thing, like they would forego kind of expression. The more hardcore you want something to sound, the less expression it will have, you know what I mean?
So you're saying something like this. I think that it sounds
Something like
bad
that,
because
yeah.
I think we can sort of hear like me
Okay.
playing each note. There is no notion of really legato on this library. Yeah, I don't like that. I think as bad as it is, the thing that I had originally was better. And I think it was like this. So yeah, I think I'll keep it like that. And maybe I could do just some good old volume automation to bring this up.
Yeah.
I have the
exactly.
the headroom, I think. Oh, I definitely have the headroom.
probably.
So it's just the cello that is upsetting you, right?
I just feel soft.
Okay, so let's do a good old slow rise. It's not dramatic, but it's different. I'll take it.
Yeah, I mean, with the library you got, like, I think you did a good job.
Right. So
Not that it's a bad library, but it's a tough library to like get like so much out of, right?
yeah, and it's like what 150 megabytes, and a good library is 500 gigabytes.
Right.
So I think that it's an awesome library for getting started with. If it wasn't for this library, I wouldn't have gotten into orchestration in the first place. And I think that maybe for the kind of thing I mentioned, like singer-songwriter, guitar, voice, and then a string just in the background, I think that could be nice with this library. I think that would work. But I guess the last thing we can play with is just making things faster and slower. So is it called rubato?
Well, I mean, rubato is like making it noticeably faster or slower. What I am talking about is just introducing like a little bit of like imagine if a conductor was conducting this, the tempo will not be like straight across the board perfectly perfect. It would kind of fluctuate like 82, some parts are 76. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Just a little bit of wobble in the.
Okay, so I'm just going to do it by measure. Let's hear what that sounds like. I probably should have played that before, but... And then I guess later I'll have to be like... Right now I'm just introducing some variation, but later I guess I would have to be intentional for things like rising, probably going to be faster.
Yeah.
Oh, I cannot do it in real time. The playback doesn't like that. Okay, so let's...
Yeah, with MIDI it goes weird.
Whoops, I want it to be on the measure. Okay, so just introducing some more variation. Let's go to somewhere where I want to be intentional about this. So in this part, it's rising. I want it to get faster and faster. So, or not faster and faster. So maybe I'll just speed up this whole section, maybe. Something like this. Yeah, let's hear that. No, even if I do it after, it also messes things up. Okay. I think I hear a difference, but also I'm looking at the thing, so of course I know there will be a difference, so I will hear it. But I guess, would you just go through the whole song and introduce these tempo changes?
Yeah, like you can kind of like, you can do it somewhat randomly. You can also think of like how you did it, just like, oh, the endings come in, like people probably naturally like slow down a little bit and speed up a little bit. It's not something where you can really like go wrong. But like like you can take an orchestral like recording and tempo map it, and you'll see that the tempo kind of fluctuates within the same. And like in classical world, like when you say allegro, it's not like a strict BPM, it's a range. So if they're within that range, like they're not even necessarily doing anything wrong, like it's just human too. We didn't even like, it really took for computers for us to understand how much our tempo fluctuates, without like a thing that objectively is beating out like an exact thing. We wouldn't even ever know.
I see. So I don't know if I am doing a good job here or if I'm just butchering, but in the end I can just always option click and everything will go away. So let's see. Just as you were speaking, I was doing it more and more, and I guess I'm doing it on the measure. So if I could hear the difference between one and the next, it could be kind of boring to do it on the measure, but because it's more like a thing you feel, not something you hear, could be good. So you said, I'm going to stall as I do this, okay? So you said that you got some revenue from your album, didn't, even though it wasn't like a huge source of income. So
Yeah.
where did that come from? Was it mostly from album sales, or did you license some of the music for something else?
No, it was all yeah, Bandcamp. I guess one thing I did also, which is maybe unwise to do, is that I was like, well, I'm not gonna promote my Spotify. I'm not gonna promote any of these platforms that are gonna pay me like a fraction of a cent per play. So I really promoted my Bandcamp. So what's good about that is that like I made $2,000. But what's bad about that is that $2,000 comes from, I think, like 100 downloads or something like that overall. So it's like, yeah, like Spotify doesn't play you well, but maybe if you promote your Spotify, you'll get a bigger reach, and hopefully some of those people will translate into Bandcamp. But I was just like, oh, let's like I'm not gonna spend money to put stuff in Spotify. So I guess in a way my investment was sound, because I made all the money back from like that I spent on promotion, and made more than that. So it was a perfect like return on investment. But maybe it also like, like it was a trade-off that like I just cuz on Bandcamp, nobody can see your stats. So it's not like somebody can be impressed by that, which is a whole other side of stuff. And if somebody goes on my Spotify now, they'll be like, well, this guy doesn't have a lot of listens. So none of my album plays got to 1,000 even. I think one of them is now 1,000, and now it's like a year and a half after the album.
So what is the story
So,
with Bandcamp? Because it's like a Patreon kind of thing where you pay to support the artist, right? Because I know that you are buying their music, but the music is available on the streaming
You
platform.
can set it for free. So for me, it's name your price, and your price can be 0, or you can just put whatever money you want, or you can set a minimum and set your price, or you can just have a set price for the album. But it's not a monthly thing like Patreon. It's just like for this record or for this single.
Yeah. So,
or
but I
something
mean,
like that.
from the perspective of the person buying, why would they buy instead of going to Spotify? It is to support the artist, right? So it's like Patreon in that sense.
Plus, I guess they're not paying a monthly fee. Plus, you can download WAV or MP3 or FLAC. So some people are attracted to that. And then, yeah, there is like a support aspect to it. You can like sponsor people, and then people can see your collection. It's a little bit more of like an indie, I guess, space. But yeah, like also you can download like normally if I buy somebody's stuff on Bandcamp, I at least have it as a download, and I can listen to it high quality. I can use it as reference tracks and stuff like that. So one of my favorite bands is Go Penguin. So if I'm out and about, like I'm listening to them on Spotify, but I also have waves of all their songs, and I use them as reference tracks all the time.
I see. So it would be for people who want to support the artists, but also for audiophiles who like having the highest quality, and just people who like owning stuff instead of having subscriptions where they are sort of renting the access to stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And I think like what I found cool about Bandcamp is that they just give you all the money, right? Like basically most of the money they give to you, they take a very small percentage. So it felt like viable to make money from it, but maybe I was ambitious because maybe right now I could trade off some income for more exposure.
That's a tough trade-off. Let's hear what this sounds like with the tempo variation that I introduced. I don't like it. I think I went overboard, right?
Um, Not that I like you didn't go too crazy in my opinion, but yeah, I mean you can get lost in this stuff and really kind of like get like kind of crazy with it.
So how about I just delete
Or
some? So there will
yeah, you
be
can
some
delete some.
variation, but it will be just
But
from.
so another thing I noticed before you delete more, press Command Option and M. Yeah. So your tempo envelope is also just all stepwise. So if it was more ramped, that could make it sound like a little bit different. But yeah, like to me, think of at the beginning when the flute is alone, there'll be lots of fluctuation. So they would probably the tempo will fluctuate a lot, and then as the cellos come in, maybe they get kind of tighter, more in sync together. The more rhythmic parts are tighter, and the less rhythmic parts are less tight. Yeah, stuff like that.
I can hear the tempo change. It's like a bad player who is like, oh no, I'm behind. I don't like it. Doesn't sound too good.
I mean, a lot of classical players think the exact opposite of that. So I remember when I auditioned for music school, I played like super in the pocket. And then I remember one of the jurists in the first class was saying like, when all of you auditioned, you were like playing super in the pocket. And then he took like a very simple piece and he played it like to tempo. Then he played it without tempo, like putting emotion into it. And it sounds a lot better. Like think of like, I don't know, the theme for Schindler's List, like played by, as I forget the name of that violinist, but he's an incredible violin player. So he could play it like perfectly in time, but he doesn't. It sounds a lot more emotional, like and it's a completely subjective thing, but like in the orchestral realm, being tight seems robotic and like you're a shitty player who just memorized the score, and putting some emotion into it and playing it off tempo sounds like the opposite. And like they do a lot, like the strong beat is a little longer and the weak beats are a little shorter. The same that they do with like velocity. So like the space between 2 and 3 is shorter than the space between 1 and 2. But it's all objective. Like if you don't like it, you should totally get rid of it.
Yeah, I think what I'm going to do is I am going to remove all of this, because I think that in order to do it well, I would need to dive into the thing and hear it again and again and be more intentional. So when you're playing the violin now, you were intentional about the notes that you made longer. You were not just randomly moving things around as you were talking to someone else. So what I am going to do is I do need to keep one, which is that weird measure we introduced. And that is this one here, I want to say. I'm having a hard time actually making sense of this. But there will be one that we need to keep. So let me go from the opposite side and get rid of all of that. And we are going to hear it again. And then we'll call it a day, I guess, because time is up. And oh, that was the one. That's the one we need. And the one after that, because we need to return to 4/4. So get rid of every other one. And it's weird that I don't see the grid changing. Wasn't it supposed?
What do you mean?
Wasn't the grid supposed to be narrower here? I don't know. Because of going to 2/4.
Oh, okay. I see. It's very small amounts. I mean, it would be hard to see. No.
And you said that you don't typically compress this kind of thing, and I know that this has been well recorded and everything. So, in terms of mixing and mastering and all of that, would you touch this a whole lot?
Well, if this was the final product, right? So if this was like you were releasing this, I mean, you would probably have a little bit of correlation issues because the way that the string section is laid out, the cellos are all the way on the right. So you have a lot more low end on your right than on your left. So if you were really mixing this, you would do something with that. You would maybe like compress the cello in parallel and put that in the center to kind of balance that.
Hang on, I want to hear
it's
that
not
for a
like you
moment
do
because I'm not
zero.
sure I noticed
Okay.
that. Ah, okay, because the usually you put the cello on the right of the conductor.
Yeah.
It is more to the right, while the flute is so far that it's probably going to be more in the middle of the stereo flute. Oh, but I can.
And it does sound a little left leaning,
Yeah.
but it's not like causing an issue because it's like higher end. Low end instruments, like when they're to one side or the other, they cause more correlation issues.
So that's going to be my quick hack for that. I just put it more in the middle. Which I guess this whole thing
like
of putting the instruments in the right positions makes more sense when you're thinking about the whole orchestra, but I am thinking about a duet, so
right.
not really
Yeah.
doesn't really
You
apply.
would like if I was doing this as a duet, I would probably have a single cello like in the middle and actually maybe possibly a little wide. And then like the flute could be kind of panned to one side or possibly doubled or like flute on one side and it's mono reverb on the other side, stuff like that. And like compression, not that nobody does any in orchestral composition. It's just like not as much like in like band music or with drums or something. You almost want to avoid some dynamic range. So like you do want the softer snare hits to come through. But if like the hard snare hits themselves are very different in level, you may not necessarily want that because you want to like set a level for your snare and make sure it works. With orchestra, like you want more dynamic range. But that said, like one thing that you can do is like have a very like low threshold and then a very small ratio, just like a 1.1 or 1.3 or something ratio. And then so that the overall dynamic range is not ruined, but just bringing everything a little bit up is totally legitimate.
Okay, so let's do that real quick. So I already have something on the master chain. I have a limiter here just to bring it up. It's not even hitting this ever. So it's at this point just a volume knob. And I was looking at this and I wanted to hit something like -19 or something. So I put that there. And just because I wanted to be able to bounce this and show it to my wife on the sound bar. So I wanted it to be loud enough for us to hear it. Right, so let's do that little bit of compression as we hear this one last time, and then I will react to everything that people said on the chat, and we'll wrap it up.
Your ratio is still too low. Maybe make it like 1.3 or something. And you can bring the threshold like further down to catch like the softest and hardest bit, and then just bring the overall range a little bit up.
When you say overall range, what do you mean?
So now you took, let's say your dynamic range was like this. I'm trying to be in the camera,
You are in the camera.
right? and you took that and you made it a little bit like you took the top off a little bit. Now you can bring the whole thing up with just makeup gain.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing here. Yeah, so sometimes I'm taking out almost 5 dB and sometimes I'm not taking anything away. So I'm gonna boost by 4 dB and it should be a relatively good comparison. And you know what I want to do? I want to put a little bit of saturation here. Just to excite things a little bit. It's probably not even noticeable, but yeah.
I noticed a little bit. I noticed a little bit, especially like the like staccato notes on the flute kind of got a little sharper.
Let's hear that again. Yeah, I like what that does to the flute. I think it stands out a bit more. So let me double check the gain here, or the level here. I want to hit something like minus 19, minus 20, something like that. No, that was too much. Let's do 5.5. And okay, we'll give this another listen from the top and see if there is anything else that we want to change. If we can get to the end of the song, it is the end of the song. And you said that if I was to release this, but I will release it, it will be one of my songs in my YouTube channel, because why not, right?
Cool.
Learn in the open. That's what I'm all about.
One quick comment about your panning action. So overall, the way you panned your cello, like the default pan knob in Reaper is like a balance knob, right? So when your signal is stereo, it's turning down one, turning up the other. So now that you're panning like this, you're turning down like the side that the cellos are on. The side that like the kind of reverb tail of cellos are in has kind of come up a bit. So I don't know if you like that or not, but like you could also, yeah, you could do like the dual pan. Oh, you are in stereo band. Okay, yeah. So yeah, you can use a dual pan and then like have the dry one place, have the other one another place. Or you can, yeah, like parallel compressing in the middle and just kind of like you make a new track, you put a low pass, and then you compress the low pass, and then you keep that in the center. That's another thing that you can kind of try instead of like affecting the balance of the, because the cello was probably recorded with like a stereo pair mic. So it may be like, I don't know, the character or the envelope of of the sound may change, unless you like that.
So you said go to a parallel track and low pass and compressor. And then we probably want to make it quieter, but we'll see about that. And
yeah, like you want to really compress it a lot and then blend it in a little bit.
Okay, so we want to really crush this guy. And okay, let's see what that sounds like. Oh.
Bring the attack up because it's getting rid of a lot of lows actually.
I don't know why I put re-EQ here. I have a low pass. But in any case... No.
You have both selected.
Yep.
Or they're linked or something.
Yeah, I have both selected.
So now it's a little more like center. I would still have it lower than that, but yeah, like if you want to kind of get more center action going, that's one way of going about it too. There's a thing going on though with this sound.
There is something
exactly
weird where I
know
cannot
why.
hear the sound with and without. Am I right? It's sending to this
What do
every
you
time.
Yeah, you have the option that when you
Solo in
solo a
place.
track, the sends are...
Yeah, solo in place. And if I mute it?
If you mute it, it'll work.
Okay. Okay, so that's a good way of doing this.
It's causing an issue. I don't exactly know what. It's like it's causing a phase thing to happen. Am I crazy? Chat, help me.
Yeah.
Let's try one thing because I have one theory about as to why this may be happening. Open the routing on track 3
Uh-huh.
and make the send just be from audio 2, so from 2 to 1 2, so that we're only receiving from the side the cellos are on. You know what I mean? And then you can saturate this a little bit too on its own. Now we're getting a little nutty, but
No, don't like it.
okay. Yes, Secret Scroll is saying like do a light flange or something. Yeah, like something to make the stuff more stereo, especially the flute. That could be cool.
is what it is.
Okay.
I am calling it.
I was gonna mention one more thing, but okay, yeah, call it.
It is done. So here we just have the sounds. We are doing a little bit of panning. I'm not as extreme. I'll let the bass be on the right. It is what it is. Then very light saturation to bring up the flute. Maybe I could put this on the flute only, but whatever. And then a tiny bit of very gentle compression. I put it in the feedback mode so it would be even more subtle. Then real limit is, I don't think, last time I bounced this, we were not hitting the limit. So it's literally just a volume knob at this point. And we are hitting minus 18, at least on that measurement. So it is okay. It is okay. It's a piece of orchestral composition. That's my homework. We'll bounce it. Right, so let's see what you all were saying, and then we can wrap it up. Oh my God. I'm trying to figure out a way to introduce noise and disruptive friction notes, tones for physical modeling, strings, for example. You probably know about this, but there is something called the stochastic model. So you can hear just the noise made by a violin player. So I guess it's easier to explain this with the flute. So you have the tone of the note being played, but you also have the breath. And using something called the stochastic model, which is a spectral analysis of the sound, you can capture just the breath, which is not tonal. You're not going to see a bunch of harmonics and peaks. You're just going to see noise. So you smooth out the magnitude of that noise, and then you randomize the phase of that noise, and then you can reproduce the quality of that noise. So if it's a breath, or if it's rain, or if it is something scratching, and probably that is something that you may want to use, because then it's a model, right? Just get a bunch of numbers, which is this model, and then you can use that. Are you aware of the Karplus strong synthesis? I am not. The best thing about the BBC Orchestra Discover is the user interface. If only more expensive libraries have a similar GUI. Yeah, that is true. Especially what I like is how it helps beginners. This is definitely made for beginners, but they have explanations like, this is what the basses do. You can use them sort of like this. And in the manual, they even say like helpful things like usually the cello and the basses are going to play this sort of the same thing, maybe one octave away. The manual for the library is really good too. I had not until now. I just looked up and it seems right up my alley. If I can find a plugin which can function as a filter to apply the algorithm as part of my processing chain. Cool. So you're not necessarily into developing things. You're trying to model things with existing plugins. Is that right? Yeah.
That bit is really difficult, like introducing randomness to a sample that isn't random. A Dan Worrell trick is to use expanding. But yeah, it's just hard to do because every time you go in the realm of like adding like an effect to create that randomness, it's not like how we perceive it. It's not like we see like fluctuation. You know, like our brain has space for things to not be exactly the same, but still be heard as the same exact thing, if that makes sense. Like if we're listening to a bunch of frogs, like yes, they're not exactly the same, but our brain like perceives them as more or less the same. So like introducing randomness by like 5%, 10% of like effects, I find doesn't like trick the brain enough. If that makes sense.
I see.
You know, like yes, you will technically not be playing the same sample over and over again, but our brain just like more or less perceives it as the same thing.
Yeah, there is also the amount of change necessary for us to even tell that that change has occurred. That's why I sometimes put a plugin on the chain and I'm like, I'm not sure I can hear that. But yeah, feedback loops, I am all into that. I have been playing with feedback loops a lot. They're a lot of fun. And yeah, just put a limiter and you won't hurt anyone. I would probably not be able to damage a metaphorical wet paper bag. Okay. Oh, Aria, do you only produce orchestral music? Oh, you already answered.
No, yeah.
But I guess your main... You said once that you want to be remembered as, if you could, be remembered as a composer for media and mostly doing orchestral stuff, right?
I don't know anymore. Yeah, I remember saying that. I just don't know anymore.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I really don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'm just like you said, right? Like at the beginning we were talking, like it's cyclical. At right now, I'm at a point where I'm like, just like if I stop existing tomorrow, I'll all my work will be forgotten the day after tomorrow. You know, but that may just be the mindset that I'm currently in and. Like when you asked me that question 2 weeks ago, I was in a different mindset.
I see. Well, you will never be really, really forgotten. Not tomorrow, anyway. We'll always remember you, but not for long because we won't be here for long. And then the whole earth will not be here for long. So there is that.
Yeah.
There is that existential dread. Okay. Oh, I'm glad that you are all liking the music. Are you here as someone who also does software development? You are a software developer too. Yeah, why not? Of course you are. I know that I'm a noob and all, but since dealing with set samples, I'm wondering if sending strings to a flange... Okay. Yeah, that could be. I was trying to go for the most organic kind of thing that you could actually do in a physical space. And I know that it's not true, of course, and not even things that people do in physical spaces are not really true. Microphones always lie, so. But that's why I didn't go with the flange and whatnot. But I'm all in for crazy effects, and that's what we're going to start doing next week, right? When we start playing with synthesizers. Especially since there is so much open space with only having 2 instruments. Yeah, kind of a minimalist kind of thing. And also being done. I like just being done with this. Oh, we could have flipped the phase when we were
I think that
having...
was when we were doing the parallel compression, yeah.
Fair enough.
I was hearing something weird. It wasn't sounding good, basically. The moral of that story was it wasn't sounding good.
Use ReQ, create a high shelf filter and make it affect only the side. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's a way of doing it.
You know what I would do? Play this MIDI on a piano only and listen to what's needed. Yeah, it's done.
Yeah, I mean, like overall for a duet, right? Like with a duet, unless it's like a guitar and piano duet, you're not gonna have all the elements there. Because I mean,
it's just your fingers.
We don't really have a sense of beat or pulse or like or like how much harmony can you create with 2 instruments that neither of which are even polyphonic, right? So
yeah,
there's lots missing, but it's a duet.
Yeah, it is. And it is done. The magic words that every producer has to say at one point, getting obsessed with Tinkery, is so easy. True. And the next one will be better. Okay, makes sense. And even the Perfect Dark soundtrack. I don't remember that soundtrack, but I remember playing that game. But I have to say, I am much more a GoldenEye 007 kind of person. It's just who I am. But even more than that, Banjo-Kazooie from that era. Or Ocarina of Time. Ocarina of Time. Cymbal crash, hard pen, left and right, with the right channel slightly delayed, creates a nice effect. I can imagine that. My Tom Stan will say, he did stuff. Yes, we are going to have
Yeah, I totally respect that a lot. Like, yeah, just do stuff, whatever, man.
Yeah, you have to be the best person in the task of living your life. And that's all we can do, really. That's the message. That is the gist of it. Arya, thank you very much for this. It has been lovely to talk to you and to actually produce music with you. And next week, we are going to meet again on Monday to do some more programming on our website, and then on Wednesday to start playing with synthesizers, right?
Sounds good.
Okay, and thank you very much for you all who were here joining us, Bo and Fatis and Secret and everyone else. And judging by the viewer counts, there are more people lurking that are not talking. But it's great to have you here as well.
The lurkers.
Yeah, and tomorrow I'll be back and we will do the programming thing that I said I would do today. So tomorrow we are going to go over my library and work with some weird stuff. We haven't really touched on drawing on a different destination, but in JSFX you can do that. So you can draw to the user interface, but you can also draw to another buffer, separate buffer, and then you can combine these buffers in interesting ways. And we are probably also going to look at how to apply effects like increasing the brightness of something, which may be useful. We'll see.
Is that like, does that mean like creating a new window, or you mean
No, I mean just
like
that
drawing, like what, drawing on like the MIDI editor?
No. So I haven't really touched this on JSFX, but it's the same API that exists for video processing. So, for instance, one thing that I did in the video processor is I wanted to have masks, just like the masks that I have on your window to do the rounded corners. I wanted to have masks like this in the video processor in Reaper. So I got a temporary buffer where I overlaid your image on a different piece of canvas. It's a different canvas. It's not the canvas that you actually see. It's a separate canvas, a separate destination. So you can draw there. I draw like your square. Then I apply a mask. I use a function that we're probably going to use tomorrow to do brightness and contrast and that kind of stuff. We can also do it to add transparency. So I added transparency to the pixels over here. And then that image is like any other kind of image source in the video processor. If you have multiple cameras rolling, you can, or multiple images in the video processor, you can grab them arbitrarily. So this image, this composition that I created with the rounded corners is just one more of them. And then I can overlay that on top of the other image to do compositing. And I don't think that that is going to be particularly useful in JSFX, but I think that we can use the same trick to do things that would be otherwise complicated. For instance, we have a notion of drawing with drawing a rectangle with rounded corners, which is not something that exists in JSFX. You can only draw circles or draw rectangles, but we draw a rectangle and we draw 4 circles to make the rounded corners. So if you wanted to make that transparent, suppose that you want a filled-in rectangle with rounded corners that is transparent. If you tried to do that with simple drawing functions, you would see the components of the rounded corners. You would see a rectangle and you would see 4 circles and they would be transparent, but you would see them, right?
Gotcha.
So if the transparency is like 50%, you would see the middle of the picture would be 50% transparent, but the corners would not, because there would be 2 shapes overlaying. So if you want that, I think that the way to do it, and that's what we are going to explore tomorrow, is to draw your shape, to draw your rectangle with rounded corners on a separate canvas or on a separate destination, and then overlay that with a transparency, because then you're applying a transparency to the whole composition. So that's what we're going to try to do tomorrow.
Interesting.
And we did talk to Psyche, but he said that he's not much of a talker. Sometimes he does watch the stream, he said. He knows about us. He's not much of a talker. And
cute.
Yeah.
Cool.
Which is a fair thing, but we can all learn from his code. I learned a lot from reading what he does. Touch OSC, it's an app for iOS. Is it possible, or maybe Android as well, I don't know. Is it possible within one thread in Android VM to control Mixer on touch screen monitors or remotely from mobile devices from server to network? OSC messages can be sent. Now, one thread on the Android VM? Probably not. You probably want multiple threads to handle all of this. Probably want one thread to talk to the mixer or the touch screen or whatever the case may be, and another thread to talk over the network, because you don't want what is happening on the network to block the other thread. Maybe control solution toolbox wrap development modules on Unraid and other servers for content producers, streamers. Okay, those are all nice ideas, and we can talk about it at some other point. Let's wrap it up, right? Yeah, make sure you drop these ideas on the Discord channel where we are all at. Right. So, Arya, thank you very much. All our participants here on the chat, thank you very much, and I see you back here tomorrow for more of this.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.